Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today. Ajib is the only Islamic bank in the Gambia. We offer Sharia compliant services, products and financing modes. Ajib have invested in ultra-modern technology in the state-of-the-art core Islamic banking software IMAL. Ajib ATMs are located in our branches at Banjul, New Joshuan, Brikama, Basse, QCell head office and Brisubi turntable. You can check your balance, withdraw cash, get your mini statement and much more. Ajib also provides 24/7 internet banking, which offers you the comfort of banking from your office or your homes. Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today and enjoy our services delivered by a team of banking professionals. For a limited time, you can get an Ajib ATM card absolutely free. For more information, contact us on 346-6666 or 327-7777. Ajib, your partnership bank.
Thank you for joining us on our QTV Business and Economy program. The Business and Economy program is intended to promote the ideals of a corporate Gambia identity with the objective of forging partnerships through dialogue between the public and the private sector, civil society organizations, and the international community. In today's episode, we continue our dialogue on the 2019 budget, and we have again been privileged to have the presence of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs in the persons of Mr. Bai Madi Sise, who is the Director of Budget. We have equally invited a player from the private sector, the Chief Executive Officer and Proprietor of Gamjuice, Mr. Isaac Thomas. Both of these gentlemen would inform our discussions over the next 1 hour. We are looking at the 2019 budget, but specifically, what is in the 2019 budget for the private sector, and how can the private sector, who is deemed to be the engine of economic growth of this country, begin to realize the gains for which it is indicated? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and welcome Mr. Bai Madi Sise, Director of Budget, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Finance and Economic Affairs. And also welcome Mr. Isaac Thomas from Gamjuice, Proprietor and CEO.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have both of you on this program. And since the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs is the owner of the 2019 budget, we would start with Mr. Bai Madi Sise. Mr. Sise, looking at the 2019 budget, and I'm glad you have a copy here with you. If we look at the first few pages, I mean, if we look at the preamble of the budget in itself, and the preamble of the budget makes reference to, fiscal discipline, working towards realization of fiscal discipline. Aspects of the budget echoes the objectives of which were set in 2018 and made reference in terms of the achievements that seemingly up to the time the budget was being prepared were being made, realized by the economy. If we look at industry, for example, industry was projected to grow by 17% compared to a zero growth in 2017. If we look at the energy sector as well, it was expected that this sector would grow by 20% in 2018 compared to 4% in 2017. And also, if we look at the construction sector, it was expected to improve to 19% in 2018 compared to 8% in 2017. And these were important revelations, because pretty much what it begins to show is that 2019 as a fiscal year is pretty much underpinned by good performance, and therefore the expectation would be that that performance would be sustained in 2019 from 2018. In view of the private sector, and these are all areas that the private sector has interest in, when you talk of energy, when you talk of construction, and also when you talk of industry. And seemingly, the view in 2018 at the time of submission of the budget or discussion of the budget at the level of Parliament, these were the performance of those sectors. Is the outlook still the same as long as 2019 is concerned for these respective sectors? Okay,
thank you very much, Honorable. Once again, thanks for having me in this program. Let me also kindly welcome Mr. Thomas, also our viewers out there as well. You raised a good point with regards to the outlook for 2019, especially with regards to industry and energy and also the construction sector. If you look at 2018, basically we had some setbacks, mainly emanating from the energy sector. We were really expecting the energy sector to grow, to expand rapidly, but towards the beginning of 2018, in fact, the energy sector contracted drastically. But recent developments has shown that in 2019, the outlook is a lot more favorable and positive with regards to the energy sector. Let me just quickly go over with you maybe some recent developments in the energy sector. The first one is to do with the recently we've signed an agreement with Car Power, which is this Turkish ship that is providing about 30 megawatts of electricity to the Gambia. Also, we've signed another agreement with Senelec of Senegal. They also providing 24-hour electricity towards all of North Bank region, a part of Lower River region, and also a part of Central River region. Now, a follow-up question could be that, is this sustainable? I mean, can we really be dependent on these external bodies to be supplying us with continuous energy? And I agree that it's not sustainable. My understanding is that this is just a temporary solution, this Car Power agreement and also the Senelec agreement. In fact, the Car Power, my understanding is that it is for a 2-year period, whereas the Senelec is a 1-year rolling period. However, also we're taking some steps with regards to the energy sector. For example, in 2018, we commissioned a 11 megawatt generator at Kotu. We also commissioned a 2.4 megawatt generator at Farafenye, also another 2.7 megawatt in Basse. By the way, the strategy for energy with regards to the country is first how to come up with a sufficient and also reliable source of energy. This is our strategy in the short term. And in the medium term, also look at the cost tariff. For example, how do you make sure that energy is quite affordable for the average Gambian? So again, we've already commissioned generators in Farafenye and Basse and also in Kotu. And moving forward also, this year we plan to commission another generator, 20 megawatts in Birkama as well. And this is scheduled to be commissioned around the 4th quarter of this year, 2019. Now, once we have all these things in place, it will drastically increase the capacity of NAWEC to provide electricity for the country. In addition, also, we are in advanced negotiation with the IDB to also procure a new 50 megawatt generator as well. In addition, we're also looking at how to get into renewable energy, because if you look at the NAWEC's portfolio, especially the financial statements, you'll see that the bulk of their expenditures is going towards purchase of fuel, maintenance of generators, and also purchase of lubricants. About 60% of the total expenditure is going towards these 3 items. So we see then how best can we diversify our energy sources. And in this case now we want to get into renewable energy. And for renewable energy, what we have in plan is currently we're working with the World Bank and the EU to come up with a 20 megawatt solar plant. That is one. Also, we've already engaged, the private sector has already engaged us, and the contract has already been signed also to have a 10 megawatt solar plant as well. In addition also, the Gambia is a member of this OMVG, and we expect to be receiving about 47 megawatts of electricity from this OMVG project, which is the dam project, this hydro dam project that is jointly Guinea and Senegal and Gambia. And by 2021, Gambia will be benefiting about 47 megawatts. So if you add all these 3 components of renewable energy, which is 47 megawatts under the OMVG project, You have 10 megawatt from the private sector and 20 megawatt also from the World Bank project. In addition, the EU is also interested in solarizing all the hospitals and schools in this country. You're talking about over 1,000 facilities to completely solarize them as well too. So we want to diversify then our energy source from hydrocarbons into renewable energy, because renewable energy is a lot more efficient. In Gambia, we have the conducive environment in the sense that we get the sunlight almost 9 months out of the year or 10 months out of the year. And also it's a lot more cost efficient rather than hydrocarbons and fossil fuel. So if you put all these things together, and also there's another ECOWAS grant coming for $66 million basically to also increase access of electricity, especially within the North Bank region, the Lower River, and also the Central River region. However, there's one key challenge with regards to energy generation, and that is the TND, transmission and distribution. This has been a problem for the past 10 years or so. And for that one also, government is taking some meaningful steps. For example, currently we have 2 projects. One of the projects is being financed by the World Bank. And what we want to do, we want to completely rehabilitate the transmission and distribution network from Birkama all the way to Kotu. We want to, for example, upgrade the distribution lines from 33 kilovolts to 225 kilovolts, which is a lot more efficient, from Birkama all the way to Kotu. Also, there is another project that is financed by India. It is a credit, it's a loan from India, from the Exim Bank of India. That one is about $22.5 million. It's also looking at enhancing or rehabilitating the TND system, basically from Kiang and also the entire Greater Banjul area. So once we really resolve this solution about these TND systems within the Greater Banjul area, then we'll see a lot less losses when it comes to energy generation. And as a result, I think you will see that the private sector will benefit a lot, because in order for any private sector to thrive or industry to thrive, they must have sustainable, reliable, and most importantly also affordable energy from government.
Let me do a follow-up question on that, but I would try to get Mr. Thomas to provide us the answer, since he's representing the interest of the private sector and he's also from the manufacturing sector. I think all the things that you have said here should be music to his ears, because the private sector, especially manufacturing, has been crying out that the cost of energy is quite prohibitive vis-a-vis manufacturing operations in the Gambia. Now, if you look at the 10 megawatt solar plant that you made reference to, if you look at the 47 megawatts from the OMVG dam project, these are renewable sources. So in terms of tariffs, are we likely to see the cost of energy coming from that 47 megawatts being lower than from the conventional fossil fuel that we're so dependent on? Perhaps you can, yes. And if that is the case, Mr. Thomas, what is your take in terms of all these energy positive outlook that we have for the energy sector? How would that help the manufacturing sector? And perhaps also, what is it that you think should be looked at amidst all of these developments, so that the private sector could benefit meaningfully from all these investments that government is facilitating to help bring about an improvement in the energy sector?
Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for inviting me here. And thank you, Mr. Sisi, for coming. To go straight to the point, I've been a manufacturer and processor for years now, 20 years. I've been in the system as a Gambian. And I've been to over 3,000 workshops. And all the time, it's the same thing you've been saying. And it seems that that is all Gambia. And new Gambia should come out from that lip service. We need action. It's fine what you're saying is good in theory, but in practical, you knew that it's not going to work. The car park is not working. It has started not working even. Sometimes it goes for 30 minutes and whatsoever. It's not. Why not we come and get a plan? I was thinking of household solar system. Household. What do you need? 20, 30 megawatts, fine. It's good. But 90% or 90% of the population, they don't need that. They don't need you just need your fan, your fridge. So you have an individual solar system. That would be one. It's free, and it will create jobs. So you're going to have an institute of, and you train the youth to be able to fix it. So that is number one we should do, because we are tired of the system. We don't know what is happening next year. This will go. And up to now, I've seen that there is no plan. So when car park goes, what is going to happen? They can say a whole lot of things. So these are the problems. We are
car
worried.
power. You mean car power? I was getting confused. Okay.
Yeah, car power. When they go, what is going to happen? It's a problem. So we should have a stable plan. And we go according to the plan. And the only plan we should go in is solar. We started. Get some thousands of solar system, a one-hole, two-hole, room in power system, and give it to the people. Sell it at a cheaper price. So that is me. That's my take.
But let me come here. I'm not trying to defend, government or the ministry, but the point is that yes, we know energy is a challenge. Government is doing X, Y, and Z to help bring about an improvement in the energy sector in the country. The private sector has been crying foul, especially your sector, manufacturing, subsector manufacturing, in the sense that the cost of energy is prohibitive. And perhaps this is why the focus now has to shift from the conventional energy that is being generated through fossil fuel, which prices continue to gyrate in the international market, to come into a mix of a hybrid with renewable energy coming in. So if you have 10 megawatts of solar plant being created by government, and we also have, for the private sector, of course, from the private sector, but in partnership.
Yeah, with government.
Yeah, with government. Yes. And you have 47 megawatts coming from the OMVG project, which would be a dam.
Yeah.
Since it is renewable, then the expectation is the tariffs would go down. And also, if you have if you want to solarize all of the school systems over time, because this would have to be over time, over the period number of years, then the need, the dependency on the grid, is minimized, and therefore that makes availability and also rationing of electricity, less of an issue. And if that is the case, then hopefully your sector would benefit. I think that is the perspective that you were trying to to highlight. So my question is, are you satisfied as a private sector with that? With these initiatives, or do you think that perhaps other avenues need to be looked into?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm not convinced. This has been there. The same thing has been talked about, discussed about 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, and it's the same. Look at the energy sector. What happened? It was like what? Until this power came in as a rush, and we have nothing to do. We just have to take them. So why not we start planning now? Why not have our solar system built? Start off something. Get 200,000 household power in solar powered. We can do it on our own.
But who would do this, though? Let me ask that question. Who would do this? Because this is private. These are private homes. Are you saying then? I benefit from solar because I use solar energy, and I at most maybe I would use NAWEC for 6 hours a day.
That's what I'm saying.
But I have to fund, the installation of my power. I have to solarize my home. So, are you expecting government to solarize private homes, or do you think that there should be a subsidy from government vis-a-vis private homes that want to solarize? And if that is the case, how do you take care of that subsidy, or how?
Yeah, what I'm saying is easy. So government have funds. They have funds upon funds upon funds. If these government funds were used, we are all millionaires. That's what I'm saying. I'm telling you, we are all millionaires. You know what I'm saying? That take a fund, invest it in 100 homes, and they pay. You tax them while you're paying NAWEC. Me, I've been paying NAWEC how much I'm paying, maybe $1,000 a year or what.
So you want government to pre-finance?
Pre-finance is easy.
You want a scheme to be put in place where government would pre-finance the solarization of homes, and then that pre-financing would ultimately be paid back
of course
by the people who are benefiting.
It's got a revolving fund.
Okay.
And then after 200,000 homes, you go for
bring in
another 100,000 homes.
Okay.
And these are reliable. It's not, you know, think about it. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe something for government to look into. I don't know, you know, what's your take on that proposal?
Yeah, maybe just a few things. First, we have to first admit the fact that the energy situation has improved over these past 6 months compared to before.
Yeah.
And as I clearly laid out, the plan in the short and medium term is to see how best to first secure sufficient and reliable energy supply. And number two, how to diversify our energy supply. And again, which is why I said, because your proposal, I'm not too sure how practical it is, because you're saying that government buys a lot of solar panels and give it to distribute it. I'm not sure about the cost, you know, implications, the logistical implications, and also whether this household will be able to maintain these solars and batteries. I'm not sure about all this logistical. So I've never seen such a scheme anyway. But what we are saying is that we have a grant from the World Bank to build a 20 megawatt solar plant that will benefit the entire country. Also, the private sector has come in, and we've already agreed an agreement with them for a 10 megawatt solar plant as well. Again, the EU is also coming to solarize the entire schools and hospitals in this country as well. And again, also you have the OMVG. All these are renewable.
Is that going to be free in the EU?
No,
or it's a grant or a loan to solarize?
The EU, there's a grant component, and also there's a loan component as well.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. So we are always on that. Grant, loan. So what are we working for? You have grant, you have loan. You have grant. So all along, my friend, we can do it. Why can't we do it? We can do it. How much to solarize a house, a household? It will not be more than 50,000.
It depends on.
It depends.
It depends.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it depends on
what I'm saying.
On the electrical appliances.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm telling you. You know what is happening here. You solarize the home, and then you give him a line for your fridge. So you only use your fridge. So you know. So you will not have to buy a 60 megawatts or 100 megawatts, of which is going to be a problem. Our problem is maintenance. Our problem is technology. My friend, that's a problem. Like, we have no technicians. We have, it will go to the same for 30 years, for 50 years. It's the same. That's why I always tell them, I said, this our problem has been inherited 50 years ago. The same Gambia is the same thing. You know, let's go forward. Let's try to advance. And you know, Gambia is like Ajina Bahwa, you know what I'm saying? That's my take on it, please.
Let me make this point. I think the move to renewable energy is quite important, and I think it's one that is noble, and I think we should commend government for looking in that direction. With renewables, I can tell you as a user that there are certain things that needs to be put in place. There is need for awareness. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking of homes. It's different when there's a national plant, whether it's on the private sector or whether it's under government control, from which would feed the national grid, and the national grid distributes the energy. Relative to you having your own small NAWEC within your house, because what you're alluding to, which is possible, but it requires that the people who are benefiting from that solar energy, which is impositioned within the home, there are issues of maintenance. How do you take care of the batteries? Being knowledgeable in terms of how many appliances, I mean, you know, I mean, how many KVA, exactly. I mean, the solar panels are generating vis-a-vis how many, I mean, what's your consumption levels of electricity, you know. So there's an other component of it which refers to education. Are they aware? Are they educated? Because, I mean, you know, if you put all that investment out there, if you follow the scheme that you're advocating for, then it could be that everything would become sunk cost.
No. It's going to be okay, because what is going to happen, we're going to have a company, a whole ministry responsible for that. You go to the person and ask, what do you have? And they come and install it for you. They can put it in this tube. And you know, it's hazard free. It's hazard free. It's 12 volts or 24 volts.
Let's move. I mean, let's move. In the interest of time. And here I want to go back to. Mr. Cisse. We've been talking, and this episode is exclusively dedicated to trying to find out what are the opportunities within the 2019 budget that is available for the private sector, in accordance with government's view that the private sector is the engine of economic growth. Could you please help us to enumerate or outline the opportunities that the private sector could benefit from, in particular reference to the 2019 budget?
That's an excellent question. As you rightly pointed out, the private sector is the engine of economic growth. One of the key functions of government is to try and create a conducive environment for the private sector to thrive. And if you look at this 2019 budget, this is exactly what we're doing, creating a lot of opportunities for the private sector to participate in. First, let me start with maybe the agriculture department or sector. There's a lot of opportunities there for the private sector. For example, today the procurement of inputs, whether it's seeds or fertilizers, is all liberalized. So the private sector can easily come in and procure these inputs on behalf of government. Also, for example, now there's a lot of emphasis on value addition and also commercialization of agriculture. And these big opportunities there also for the private sector. For example, there are SICs, which is these special investment certificates being issued out if you want to go into this commercial agriculture. And also, we have a ready-made market here in the Gambia when it comes to agricultural products. If you look at most of the agricultural products being consumed in this country, most of it is imported. So it means that there's a ready-made market from the general public, from the hotels, from the supermarkets and the like. Also, one key area that's been impeding the growth of agriculture sector is to do with infrastructure, road infrastructure. This has been a big problem in the agriculture sector, so that farmers can move their goods from one place to another, or from one market area to another market area. But even if you look at that area as well, there's been a lot of developments, positive developments over the past 5-6 years. In terms of main roads, now you can maybe travel the entire length and breadth of the country very easily. In terms of maybe, you have the Banjul to Basse, you have, for example, Birkama Dari Salami, you have now the Lamikoto Pasimas, is at an advanced stage, Sukuta Jambanjeli. In terms of access roads too, and government is placing a lot of emphasis now on access roads and feeder roads now. For example, you have the Wasu to Barajaling, then you cross, then from there you also go to Wellingara to Birkama. And this is a very important and strategic access road, because you're linking Wasu, which has the biggest lumo when it comes to livestock. And then you're also linking it to Birkama, which has the biggest lumo in the entire country. So you're linking all these different markets. Also, you have the from Choya to Dankunku to Jisadi in the South Bank. Then you cross, you also have the North Bank access roads as well too. So all these access roads are being built just to facilitate trade and also farmers to be able to move their goods from point A to point B. In total, about 200 kilometers of access roads has been constructed over this past few years. Another opportunity too for the private sector is to do with regards to the matching grants, for example, in the agriculture sector. There's a lot of matching grants. For example, to date, all you have to do for the private sector, it can be even an individual, is just come up with the agriculture business plan and submit it to the Minister of Agriculture, specifically the GCAF project and also the NEMA project. And to date, the GCAF, my understanding is that they've disbursed about $25 million just on matching grants alone. And also NEMA has also disbursed about $25 million. So in total, more than $50 million.
Dalasi or dollars?
No, Dalasi. $50 million has been
because they have about $150 million. So
$50 million has been disbursed. But when you hear about the agriculture project, they have different components. But this is just only the matching grant component. Maybe you're looking at the entire project itself. Maybe the entire project will also entail road infrastructure, and that is very capital intensive. But I'm only talking about the matching grant component. Okay, so if you submit a business proposal, you can be eligible up to 55% of the entire cost. It can be funded from the project as grant. Let me also go to maybe the area of education. There's also a lot of opportunities for the private sector to get into the education sector. One key area that government has placed a lot of emphasis recently is to do with TVET education, which is technical, vocational education training.
Yep.
And there's big opportunity there for the private sector, because currently, government has put a lot of money in this budget, 2019 budget, for kids to be trained for technical and vocational skills. Because if you look at today, the youth population, not everybody is graduating from high school and going to university. Some of them are graduating, but not going to university. And others, they even drop out even before they get to grade 12. So it is a lot of those youths who are currently not doing a lot. So what government wants to do is train these people, give them skills in terms of maybe plumbing, in terms of maybe software development, in terms of masonry, auto mechanic, welder, carpentry, all these things. And government has spent a lot of money in the past, and we even want to spend more. Not only government, but even our development partners. They're extremely keen on TVET education. And currently, if you look at it, it's mainly the GTTI who's really offering courses pertaining to these technical and vocational skills. But if the private sector can come in and come up with a very good institution, of course, it is quite capital intensive because you need a lot of tools and equipment, for example, for welding, for carpentry, for auto mechanic, you need a lot of tools. But once you can able to, overpass or overcome that hurdle, whereby you can come up and set up a very good TVET institution, there's a lot of prospects because government is willing to finance and sponsor a lot of students to go and acquire these technical and vocational skills. Also, for example, also with regards to TVET, let me just give a very simple example. Today, if you have a car, let's say it is a 2014 model or 2015 model, and it has an electrical breakdown, most of the time, you will have to either take it to Senegal in order just to diagnose it, or take it to a foreigner to diagnose here in the Gambia, either Senegalese or Lebanese or something like that. That goes to show that there's a big demand for these technical and vocational skills within our own Gambian people. Also, let me go into the area of maybe infrastructure, for example, road infrastructure. There's also big opportunities there for the private sector. Because what is happening recently over these past 5 years, you see that government is trying to drastically enhance the road networks in the entire country. Not only major roads, but also access roads as well too. And the thing is, government is willing to put a lot of resources. In fact, there's a lot of resources in this budget. In fact, the Ministry of Works budget is $6.2 billion for 2019. And most of that is going towards road construction, most of it. And now the thing is, it's only very few companies in this country who are into road construction. So there's a lot of opportunities there for the private sector to also go into road construction. Very few companies are doing it. And the demand is there because government wants to invest, a lot of resources into road construction, and donors are also looking. For example, EU, they just financed, is it 15 million euro, or just on access roads. Also you now have this Basay Fatoto Koina Road that is being financed by the Chinese. You have the Lamin Koto Pasimas. You even have the Trans-Gambia Bridge. And by the way, we're supposed to pay another $2 billion this year on this Trans-Gambia Bridge. So really, there's a lot of emphasis on road infrastructure. Also in...
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, for example, in the area of tourism, there's a lot of opportunities there also for the private sector. Especially a lot of emphasis on the rural tourism as well too, because if you look at tourism, it's mainly centered around the Greater Banjul area. But how do we basically come up with new tourist attraction sites in the rural areas? And also maybe even to rehabilitate some of the tourist sites in the rural areas. Not only that, but also provide accommodation, tourist accommodation in the rural areas as well too. I'm talking about maybe eco-lodges and eco-hotels in the rural areas. So there's a lot of opportunities there as well.
But are those from a matching grant perspective as well? How can the private sector, for example, benefit you? When you spoke of agriculture, you spoke about the opportunities in terms of government pretty much decentralizing or letting go as compared to the past where government would import the seeds and import fertilizers. Now they're giving the private sector the opportunity to do it. So you'll probably find a tender in the paper that says, tender invited for people to provide X, Y, and Z. So could you dilate more in terms of tourism? And I'm sure he's listening keenly. He's a little kind of within the agricultural sector. I mean, since he's in processing of, in the processing business. But could you be specific in terms of how the private sector, because I'm sure a lot of private people would be watching and would want to know, exactly what the opportunities are, so that they would see how they could also, benefit vis-a-vis tourism. I think the agriculture one you've covered it very well. In terms of road infrastructure also, you have covered it very well. Education too, you've covered it very well in terms of people coming up. Just as we had previously government-dominated education, but you have a lot of private schools now, but the private sector need to invest. That initial investment has to be undertaken. So is it the same thing as in tourism as well?
Yes, tourism, because the government's primary, especially our fiscal position now, would not really accommodate us giving a lot of subsidies also to the private sector. So the private sector will have to invest, but government can create the enabling environment. For example, trying to implement prudent fiscal policies whereby access to credit will not be that challenging, because currently access to credit is a big challenge in this country. It used to be, but now the situation is getting a lot better. In fact, I wanted to get into that as well too. And also making sure that you have good road infrastructure, you have a good market, you have good laws and the like. But in terms of giving matching grants in the tourism sector, I'm not aware of that. Basically, the investor will have to come in and invest.
Yes.
But government will also have to create the enabling environment. And also maybe if you want to, for example, construct these ecologies also, maybe we can give you import duties, waivers in terms of your importation of goods, and also maybe even SICs, which is these special investment certificates.
I know before I bring Mr. Thomas in, let me just also make another point. I know that in the previous government, towards the latter years, there was this discussion in terms of, as we have this policy, that the tourism development area is reserved for tourism-related activities. There was also a policy that was being looked at across the length and breadth of the country, but from the river, where, on the banks of the river, I think 500 meters, from the banks, 500 meters inland was supposed to be reserved as a tourism development area vis-a-vis ecologies and all of these things that you're talking about. So the possibility of people who are interested in investing in tourism in the hinterland, you could, if that law did pass, I don't know whether subsequently it was done away with, but this was what was being discussed, at the time, then there's free land as well, just as you would apply for a piece of land within the TDA and it's not sold to you. So this is also another area that, private people who are out there who are looking at going into tourism, this is another opportunity, if at all that policy still stands. Mr. Thomas, he's made some good points here, and I'm quite sure you must be intrigued.
As I told you, I've been to 3,000 workshops, and we've met several times, and it's a good opportunity you are.
But let's focus on on the facts that he's putting on the table.
That's the fact.
And how is it that the private sector could benefit? What's your take on those?
I haven't mastered on these things. I know what I'm saying about the private. It's nice. They put it nicely, theoretically. It nicely on paper, but practically it's zero. You know what I mean? What I don't like in the thing is when they're doing their policies, they don't invite nobody. They sit down and do their policies. You know what I mean? There should be a data, transparency, that you go and look the data. Who is and who is there? Who made the decision? What is the budget? It should be there, just pinned, and it's on the internet. But that is not the case. The agriculture, what I'm saying, all these things are fine. But what we should concentrate on is agriculture. Agriculture can create thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands youth employment. I can do it. But you have to come to the people that are in agriculture and with food processing. You cannot sit down in the office and talk all these jargons, and then you come, look, food, look, agriculture.
But
90%, sorry, 90%. Look, you said it. You said it. They came, our food are vegetables from Senegal. Chicken, all are imported. All the poultries have collapsed. This is not a shame. Let me tell you something what happened one day. I told you I've been to this workshop. We invited the president of the Hotel Association a white guy, you know, they speak the truth. You know what he told us? He said the eggs, they are frozen for our hotels. What is Gambian benefiting from our hotels? Zero. All the vegetables are from there. All the musicians are imported. All the food are imported. So what is benefit? The staffs are not well paid. So what is there for the Gambian? The eggs are frozen, put in a container, frozen to Gambia to be served to the tourists. And they say our eggs are the best. So why not come with a package? You have your matching grant. You know, these things is a kind of a networking. It's a networking. You come, you have your local chicken. Somebody grow it. Local chicken is business. Why not create it?
Yeah,
and sell eggs to the hotel.
Yeah.
Eventually, you have poultry.
Mr. Thomas, we're aware of the challenges. But the question is, how do we now, under the circumstances with the opportunities that exist, how does the private sector work in tandem and leverage and bring about a change in the realities that currently exist?
Okay,
if we look at the importation of eggs, eggs are being imported, and as per the reckoning of the gentleman you referred to, the eggs are frozen when they come to Gambia. Yeah. Naturally, I'd rather eat an egg that is fresh and not frozen.
Of course.
Yeah?
Everybody wants
so that is the reality. How do we move from the reality to ensure that the eggs that we eat, whether it's at the homes, whether it's at the hotels, or whether it's at the restaurants, are fresh eggs? Meaning, how do we benefit from the opportunities that he's saying so that we can begin to create the to rear our own, have our own poultries? What are the causes why the poultries are failing? This is where I would want you to be coming in.
That's what I'm so putting in a broad perspective. But what I'm telling you is this. Have a committee, have committees to have practical people on the ground. Look, the agriculture people, some of them have no farms. They have nothing. They have no farm. They are not processing. They are not doing nothing. You are custody of millions of dollars. What I'm saying, fine. Bring the people in. I will tell you what to do. You are not there. We've been there for 20 years. Sometimes they don't invite me even to some stakeholders. They know I'm going to tell them the truth. Like what I'm saying now. It's the truth. I've been there. 20 years I've been processing gam juice and doing these things. They compliment me all the time. You're trying. Look, 90% of Gambian business have failed. I am there. You will see somebody have a bar and restaurant and I've been supplying them. After 1, 2, 3 months, 1, 2, 3 years, they're
no longer there.
They're no longer there. So what is the problem? You know,
those are the problems I want you to
bring. The committees, that's what I'm saying. The committees, you form committees and see people. You understand that are practically seen. You know, let me tell you, the other thing I hate, is associations and committee level. They are good at that. Form association. It's only chopping money. You find an association, those people are not educated. You say, I want to create you a story building for 50 million. You will say, yes, association. Who owns it? Nobody. So me, I'm against associations. All associations have failed. They take them, take a picture of them, and that's the end. So, boy, we are here. So what I'm saying, this new Gambia, let's go forward. That's my challenge. And I see that maybe Mr. Cisse would reckon to what I'm saying. Committees like agriculture, there's nobody who is a processor or is a farmer. You get to the ordinary farmer, money. Louis, what is your problem? If I tell you all this are matching grant, I know about them. They have gone somewhere. Me, I don't know in the Gambia here who are.
Actually, I was going to come on that point, and this is where I thought that you would perhaps come in when he mentioned the opportunities that exist within the matching grant, especially within GCAF and NEMA. Because one of the challenges that the private sector have always lamented is accessing the matching grants can be very time-consuming, strenuous, to the point of where the private players get discouraged because the amount of paperwork is just...
I applied.
So is this something, and the matching grants, from what I understand by, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that some of these funds have timelines against them. And if those timelines come due, you are left with no option but to return the funds because they're unused. So how is it that we can improve in terms of the requirements to accessing these funds? Nobody is saying give out cash without the requisite paperwork. But what is it that can be done so that people would not discourage or have this mentality that it is so difficult to access the matching grants to the point where, you know what, I can't be bothered, let me perhaps go to a bank and try and see if I can get a loan, because it's a challenge. So despite, I mean, we have a lot of matching grant, and I'm sure it's going to continue to come, but what is it that could be done to help improve access?
No,
without compromising on the requirements of documentation.
No, can I add something onto that?
Yes.
Because I've applied on the matching grant.
Yeah.
Ganjos, apply. I have my land, I have everything. And they start today, tomorrow.
No, give us specific. Give
no,
us
what I'm saying,
to help
number
the
one,
program, and to help
they
understand.
They will come when you go for meeting. There will be no meeting. They say postpone. And the last one, you know what happened? Of my X amount, you know what they say on the machine grant? They say they're going to sponsor me only for equipment. I say equipment. I say the person who is coming to install equipment, they say no. The staff and those other things, they say no. I say, what do you want? You want them beyond the bank? And the other thing, that is one. Number two, the finance has to go to the bank. After approving you, the bank has to guarantee you. You go to the bank, guarantee for 15% of the, if it's 50, 60, you know what I mean? So they will give you 60 and 40. Well, no matter what is the bank. Why can't we have an agriculture bank or a Gambian bank or agriculture bank that will just guarantee you for 1%, 2%? Senegal, those are things, those 21%, 26%, Lulu has expired, Lulu has gone for agriculture. So nobody will tap those things. Anybody who is tapping it to fail. Who is going for those things? So these are one of the things. So you come in, you say, agriculture, why should you pass it through the bank? Okay, let's have number one. Before you start this, you have an agriculture bank. When you have this, you go to the agriculture bank. They give you a project or whatsoever. They give you the money for 1% or 2%. Yes, maybe you can make it. So what I'm saying that, in the nutshell, when you have this committee, you invite the people, the Gambians.
So you want wider consultation when some of these policy pronouncements.
We should be part of the system. We should be part there. We should be there, not to wider. And the other thing I don't like is I don't like the privatization of technical schools or those kind of things. No, why should we privatize it? Let government. That is another problem for our business. In Gambia, business climate is difficult. You see, that's why when I see somebody talking, I laughed. You've never business. You talk, why not this, why not? That's a problem. The other thing is support. The government don't support us. You know the Indian approach, you talk about the Indian approach. You still come, we've been to seminars, we've been to workshops. You know Indian approach, what they do? 40% of all government expenditure comes from the private small-scale industry. You see here, for example, furniture, all is made of, is imported. You sit down, sometimes you drink Coca-Cola and Sprite, or whatsoever, imported drinks. You leave your wonjo. So who is going to buy a wonjo?
So you are now advocating for gum juice. More
consumption of local juice. Not gum juice, local juice, yes, local juice. So we can start from something. We can start.
Let me come by to another two important areas that I think the private sector would have interest in. The 2019 budget speaks of medium-term public sector reform. And here I want to look at the creation of the public-private partnership initiative. I mean, a unit actually that sits at the ministry. And also the state-owned enterprises bill as well. So we have the state-owned enterprises bill and the public-private sector, public-private partnership bill. These bills, perhaps you could give us an update as to where we are, because I think the outlook was that it would be validated sometime in January, this year. I don't know whether that has been done. But from the public-private partnership initiatives that government is trying to push, and I know there's a lot of support in that regard, and from the state-owned enterprises bill as well, how is it that the private sector could benefit from these two bills that government is looking at onboarding?
Yes, basically what government is trying to do, first let me start with regards to SOEs, which is state-owned enterprises. If you look at the past 6-7 years or so, normally SOEs are supposed to complement or supplement government's revenues. But what has been happening in the Gambia is the complete opposite. Instead, there have been a burden on the government budget, whereby government has to spend a lot of money bailing out some of these state-owned enterprises. In fact, if you look at our debt portfolio, the reason why the debt has drastically increased over these past 6 years is because we spent substantial amount of resources just to bail out public enterprises. So we came to a point that this is no longer sustainable. So we said, let us try to embark on a SOE reform, basically. So what is this SOE reform basically focusing? In fact, we're also working with the World Bank on this SOE reform. It's focusing first, how do we attain fiscal discipline or financial discipline within these public enterprises? And that we want to see how best we can first standardize the reporting templates of all public enterprises, and for them to be submitting these financial statements on a quarterly basis to the Ministry of Finance for thorough scrutiny. Another area that we're also looking at in terms of reforming the state-owned enterprises is how do we improve the governance framework of these state-owned enterprises. And for that one, what we are doing, we want to see how best we can professionalize the board of directors, because what we've been seeing in the past is that certain institutions, we have board members who are not really up to the task of being a board member at those institutions. So we want to see how best do we identify competent and reliable board of director members for these SOEs. In addition to that also, to see how best we can clearly define and strengthen these oversight bodies responsible for the SOEs. I'm talking about the PACPEC Committee of the National Assembly, I'm talking about the Ministry of Finance, and also the board of directors. How do we clearly define their role and also strengthen their role as well too. And the last object that we're looking at is to also, how best do we comply with the law? And what we had, as you rightfully mentioned, before we used to have a public enterprise law, but now this law has been amended to the SOE law. And it is my understanding that the law will be laid at Parliament this month, this January or February or so. And with regards to PPP, what we've been doing is that, because if you look at government fiscal position, our fiscal position really does not allow us to finance all of government development agenda at one go. So we have to rely on not only our development partners, but also the private sector. So the aim of this PPP is to see how best we can leverage private sector investment to also meet government development agenda. So few things we've done with regards to PPP. The first one is we've already come up with the PPP operational guideline, whereby we clearly highlight some of the processes and procedures of coming up with a PPP in the country. Another thing we've done also is also formulated the PPP policy, which amongst other things is looking at basically how to comply with social and environmental studies, how to protect the interests of the different stakeholders, you know, and the like. In addition also, we now have a draft PPP law, as you rightfully mentioned, and my understanding is that this law will be tabled at Parliament this month or next month. And finally also we've identified 10 priority areas for PPP. I'm talking about the energy sector, for example, especially the generation of electricity, talking about water supply, sanitation, waste management disposal, ferry services, agriculture in terms of irrigation systems and training, quality testing of inputs, you know, also for the health sector in terms of, you know, building training hospitals. So there's a lot of, you know, 10 key priority areas that is formulated and basically ranked as priority areas for PPP. Now, to go specifically to your question, how will the enactment of this bill help the private sector? I think it can help them drastically in the sense that now the private sector know that there's a law that is governing how PPPs are being implemented in this country. So what that does is that will bring confidence that we have a law in place now that will govern how PPPs are being managed and implemented in this country. Likewise also SOEs too, there's a law that is very in line with international best standard in terms of how these SOEs should be governed, for example. So I think it will bring about confidence, the enactment of these laws will bring about confidence in the private sector.
We have 4 minutes to go. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I will take the last 2 minutes. But with your 2 minutes, Mr. Thomas,
yes,
public-private partnership has been spoken of. It's an opportunity. It's the platform that is being used to develop some of our neighboring African countries. Senegal is a case in point. Ghana is a case in point. Nigeria is a case in point. The private sector, from what he said, Are you satisfied, or do you think that something perhaps needs to be looked at to ensure that the private sector benefits more from?
Yeah, as I said, we've been discussing this for years now, and nothing has come out of it. And definitely, they keep on, you know, as you said, they keep on telling you targets. And one thing I don't understand, where are the targets coming from? Who is formulating the targets? There's growth rate of 18%. The next time is jump to 20. Where is it jumping? It's jumping, the people are poor. You understand? So my sector is my agriculture that I know of it, because I'm dealing with the farmers, I'm dealing processing, and they are getting poor, the farmers are getting poor. So what I'm saying that let's change their policy and their vision. Let's come and put us together. Let's be part of the system, you know, and then we can advise them better, because there are a lot of things we could do. Look at the mango. I don't understand. For years, you know, the mangoes have been rotting, and I don't understand. You are looking at it, and then what kind of,
the watermelons?
The watermelons, you know, and the groundnuts. Even the last time is zero. We were one of the best producer of groundnut when I was young in West Africa. Now there's one or 2 years ago, it was zero. So what is the problem? I'm saying that bring the private sectors in your committees in decision making for agriculture. When you come to electricity, bring an electrical man. You cannot bring Mr. Thomas, a Gambian man, for electrical or whatsoever. So these are the things, you know. So that's my stake. Let's open a new page, and what you are doing, that's a good way forward. You understand? Not say I'm against the government or whatsoever. I'm just saying what we should move ahead.
Under the new Gambia dispensation.
Yeah.
But I mean, before I take my last minute, you made a very good point in terms of the SOE and the governance structures that are being put in place. And perhaps maybe one thing that I've discussed actually on the first 2 episodes of this program, when I invited Mr. Senghor, the then chairman of Standard Chartered Bank and former MD of Shell in those days. One of the things that he mentioned, and I think this is very important, in our country, and this has been traditional practice, the president appoints the chairman of the board of directors. The president equally appoints the managing director or the head of the institution. And that in itself is conflict. So this is perhaps something that we need to take a look into in terms of governance. The president should appoint the chairman, and the chairman and the board of directors should appoint the head of the institution. And in that way, the reporting line is clearly demarcated, and there won't be conflict as long as governance is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this program. This was all we had for you today. As always, the time is never sufficient. We were hoping that this would really help us cement our discussions on the 2019 budget, but that is not the case. And seemingly, I don't know, we may be tempted to bring Mr. Mahdi or any other personality from the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs to help us better understand the 2019 budget and how it is that we as a country could begin to have better understanding so that we can move forward under the new Gambia dispensation to move the affairs of this economy forward. Mr. Mahdi, as always, thank you very much for coming on the program. Thanks for your contributions. Thanks for your insights. And Mr. Thomas, thank you very much. Thanks for your insight. Thanks for your points. And I'm sure this is not the last I will be seeing of you. I will have to talk a program exclusively on agriculture, and then I'm sure the discussions will be more focused.
Of course, yes, of course. I want that.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today. Ajib is the only Islamic bank in the Gambia. We offer Sharia compliant services, products and financing modes. Ajib have invested in ultra-modern technology in the state-of-the-art core Islamic banking software, IMAL. Ajib ATMs are located in our branches at Banjul, New Joshuan, Brikama, Basse, QCell head office, and Busubi turntable. You can check your balance, withdraw cash, get your mini statement, and much more. Ajib also provides 24/7 internet banking, which offers you the comfort of banking from your office or your homes. Come and visit the new Ajib Bank today and enjoy our services delivered by a team of banking professionals. For a limited time, you can get an Ajib ATM card absolutely free. For more information, contact us on 346-6666 or 327-7777. Ajib, your partnership bank.